I don't know where to look first. Bobby gives a groan, so my focus snaps to her where she is laid out on the floor of the hallway. Her skin is starting to blister and bruise with smears of blue and white, just like the deceased I'd seen on the supernatural that night with Farrar. Shocked into motion, I grip the edge of Bobby's coat and drag her into the safety of my living room. Or at least what I thought was safety. My attention slides back up as movement shifts in the corner of my eye. The lone figure who had attacked Bobby skulks into the room, soon flanked by two more strangers who emerge from the window panes in my living room. The glassy surface ripples around their movements. None of us move. Thankfully, that at least gives me a moment to examine them a little more closely. And it's not hard to imagine where they're from. Even in the dim light of the room, their hair and skin glow a soft paper white, and their eyes are a stark contrast of black ovals with circles of yellow where their irises would be. The one who attacked Bobby, a shorter woman with an athletic build made obvious through her simple but form-fitting clothing, sneers at me across the room. This standoff isn't going to last much longer. Right, work out how to get the advantage in this situation. We've researched. I mean, we probably haven't yet, but we're not going to fight them. We've got no chance. I need to be the one to have the advantage in this situation. My gaze falls on the window, and I realize just what to do. They came through one way, so it's only logical to deduce they plan to leave that way too. Threaten to take away their exit plan, and they'll be trapped. All I have to do now is get to the window past all three of them. We're not gonna do A, but are we physically capable enough to do a feint and go around them? We'll taunt them into moving. Adrenaline engulfs my senses, and I can barely keep an eye on the whole group of them, let alone think of a plan, but I don't have much of a choice. Without thinking on it any further, I leap forward and am knocked to the ground as the woman closest to me smashes her arm into my chest. That's not what taunt them into moving means. I crumple to the floor in a heap, groaning, and the woman doesn't hesitate before prowling towards me again with a sneer. I croak out the words as pain engulfs my chest. I just want to know why you're here. She remains threateningly silent, but a thud of footsteps from the window answers my question. I'm pretty sure there was no way out of that. I roll my head around to watch as someone new emerges through the pool of liquid glass that was once my window. Except this figure is definitely not new. It's the supernatural from the carnival. He glances about the room with a quick gaze, his pale brow lifting only a millimeter as he takes it in. You. The word leaves me before I can stop it. His hawk-like eyes shift to where I am sprawled on the ground. A satisfied smile plays on his pale lips. I see my friends have helped you get comfortable. I barely hold back a sneer. Don't get up, we'll see ourselves out. He continues as the smile lengthens. He gestures at the rest of the people now flanking him, as well as the woman who is still hunched over me. People I assume are his followers by the way they rise eagerly at his command. He mutters something I can't quite hear, but get enough of to know it's not English. They step back through the window pane without another word, and their leader moves to follow. I scramble to stand, lunging forward to stop him and grabbing his forearm with one hand. Wait, what have you done to her? I gesture down at Bobby with my other hand. She still lies unmoving on the living room floor. The supernatural's head snaps around to stare at where I'm gripping him. He doesn't spare Bobby a glance. Without a second's pause, his hand wraps around my wrist. My whole body freezes as I watch white blisters and blue swirls begin to merge and meld over the skin of my hand. Scorching hot pain follows not long after. I grit my teeth as my vision blurs from agony. It's like my skin is searing right through to the nerves below. He smiles. You're not immune from everything we can do, it would seem. I stumble back. A breath of relief catches me as the pain dissipates. With his touch no longer on me, the disease fades from my skin as the smile fades from his expression. It would seem the disease is definitely magical, and they have total control over it. Accept the courtesy of our warning. We will not interfere in your affairs, do not interfere in ours. He twists around and is enveloped by the pane of glass. All that remains is the wide-eyed reflection of me clutching at my arm. After a solid minute of trying to rid the shock from my system, I'm jolted back into consciousness by a groan to one side. My head whips around to Bobby. Her breathing is erratic. I drop to my knees by her side to scan her. It's exactly the same as the disease before, blue smearing her skin and blisters forming painful looking scars along each limb, bleeding up her neck onto her face. Her eyes are squeezed shut, her teeth clenched together so hard I can hear them grinding. A sharp breath leaves me, and I run a hand over my hair as my gaze drops to the ground. This isn't exactly something a normal hospital is equipped to deal with, especially as I have no idea how much she saw. I stand up to grab my own phone, then I move to the doorway to collect Bobby's, which had been left there. The recorder had still been running through all of this. My attention flicks to my screen as it blares to life. With just a second's more hesitation, I punch the keys to scroll through the contacts, then let the phone ring. Well, isn't this a surprise? Farah greets me from the other end. The cheery sound of her voice sends a wave of ease coursing through me. A very nice one. So what's up? Everything good? Hmm. Well, I glance down at Bobby. Not exactly. Are you okay? Yes, I reply with a nod, but will you come over? I'll be there in a few seconds. The call clicks off. I look over my apartment with a brow raised. Well, at least my apartment stayed in one piece this time. Yay. Nearing dawn at the warehouse. What happened? Nat asks through a worried breath, helping Farah place the still unconscious and disease-riddled Bobby down onto the sofa of the warehouse's living room. Sunrise blazes its blinding light outside the window, and I shy away from it, doing my best to shake the tiredness away. Nat gives Bobby a quick inspection. It's the same disease. Inflicted by the supernaturals from the carnival, I reply. They paid me a visit. All eyes turn to me. Are you injured? Ava asks, her tone softer with concern than I was expecting. I shake my head, more tired than hurt at this point. They're attacking outside of the carnival now? Nat frowns down at Bobby before glancing over at Ava. This is an unsettling development. Maybe they get stronger the longer they stay in one place. Morgan theorizes, stepping up beside the group. She casts an examining gaze over Bobby and gives a smirk. So who is this? Yeah, we don't get to hang out at your apartment in the middle of the night, Farah adds in an attempt at joking tone. Why does she? Hmm. You know what, let's go with that. She's a reporter, I say, leaning forward to place my hands on the back of an armchair. She was trying to get information. Oh well, that's just great, Morgan groans, swinging around to retreat to her shadowed corner. Ava steps forward. You know how much she saw? I shake my head. Agent Langford and agency medics will be here soon. Ava continues while frowning over at Bobby. They can deal with her then. And if she saw a lot? I venture to ask in slower words than usual. Ava gives a slight smile. This is not the first time the agency has been exposed. We have measures in place for such a thing. Ones that won't harm or have any painful effects on her, don't worry. I wasn't worried. Nat is quick to jump in on realizing just how threatening Ava's statement could seem. The woman really needs to work on her people skills. So, what actually happened? Farah asks. I slumped down into one of the armchairs, thinking back on the frantic past few hours. They just kind of appeared out of my window. Through your window? Morgan asks. Not through the window, but from the actual pane of glass, I explain. Nat leans against the mantel of the fireplace. I suppose it makes sense. The one you saw at the carnival was inside a mirror. Maybe they only need a reflective surface to live in or travel through. Well, that's enough to give you nightmares, Farah comments. One of them put a hand over Bobby's face, and then I look over at the reporter before shaking my head to clear it. The guy we saw at the carnival came through after them. He said it was a warning not to interfere. I ran a hand over my arm, the memory of the painful disease he temporarily infected me with returning for just a moment. And he was pretty insistent. You must be on their radar after what happened, Nat says, a strain of guilt tugging on the words. Ava comes to stand beside me. Is there anything else you can remember about them? Oh, I might have something. I lean forward to tuck out Bobby's phone. Scanning the recording Bobby was making, I zip past all of the stuff before the fight and let the recording play. There isn't much, but it did manage to catch what the leader of the group had said to his followers. I stopped the recording. It's Estonian. It is? Okay. I look over at Nat, who says it at exactly the same time as I do. She sends a bright smile my way. You know your languages? Some, I reply. You? I mean, I could have probably told it was Estonian if it had actually been written there, but since it wasn't, well, a few, she says. Oh, please, Fra adds. Natkins here knows practically all of them. There's a heavy amount of pride in those words as Farah turns an almost awe-filled look over at Nat. What did the guy say? Morgan asks with impatience, getting the conversation back on track. Something along the lines of, we're done here, let's go, I translate. A lot of help, that is, Morgan groans. We now know where they're from, Nat replies. It gives us a starting point to find out what they are. A familiar voice echoes from the hallway outside, and we all turn to watch as my mother strides into the room flanked by 3 agents dressed in grey medical uniforms. She doesn't even greet Unit Bravo before moving through the room towards me with arms outstretched. What happened? She asks. Are you all right? Her hands move to take mine in concern. Sure. Her fingers wrap around mine as her gaze examines me for wounds or injuries. I'm fine, I reply to calm her worries. It wasn't me who was hurt. Her gaze falls to Bobby on the sofa and her head tilts slightly. What is she doing here? She's been infected with the disease, Ava states. I'll explain the situation. The medics move to tend to Bobby, even though it's apparent there's little they can do. Come on, Jules, Farah says, bouncing out of her seat to stand in front of me. I'll take you home. Is home really the place I want to go now? I mean, I guess they left. There's gonna be no danger tonight for the rest of it. Yeah, sure. Exhaustion claws at every limb with such intensity that all I can manage is a nod of thanks. It is like probably 2 or 3 a.m. at this point. We both make our way out of the hustle and bustle of the living room. On the way to my apartment building. The ride back isn't as short as it normally is, mostly because of the way Farah manages to stall the car 3 times as well as have it in the wrong gear for most of the drive. Thankfully, no one was on the roads at this time in the morning for it to have been an issue. She eventually manages to park the roomy agency SUV in the parking lot of my apartment building, and then she walks me inside. Sunrise is obscured through the leaf-burdened trees outside the windows of the hallway, casting dabbled blobs of pale light along the cream walls as we walk. No one is awake at this hour, and our muffled footsteps on the carpet are the only sound around us. Conversation is in short supply as thoughts weigh on my mind. Something up? Farah asks as we come to a stop outside of my door. I barely even hear a question. Farah says with a nod. You're probably worried about the reporter woman. I'm more worried about these supernaturals from the carnival creeping about town, I reply with a frown, especially if they can just pop into anyone's home. Yeah, I think creep is a pretty good word for anyone who just appears out of reflections whenever they feel like, she replies with a shudder. I chuckle. That's not really helping. Well, I'm not worried, because I know I got you to keep me safe. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be capable of that. She steps closer to put an arm around me. My gaze moves to look at the touch, and an intruding voice plagues my memory. But pursuing anything with the detective may end up hurting you both. Ava's disapproval rings inside of my ears. You sure it's okay to do that? I ask. Farah instantly snaps her arm back. Sorry, No, I don't really mind it at all, I reply before she misunderstands. Just more that others in the team might not approve. Farah breaks into a grin. You mean Ava? I don't need to reply for the answer to be obvious. You really think I'd listen to that old bag of stuffy nonsense? She shakes her head, waving a hand in dismissal of the idea. Geez, if we listened to Ava all the time, we'd never have any fun. Sure. Oh, I'm sure you get into lots of fun Ava doesn't approve of, I reply with a bright smile. She shrugs and then chuckles. Only to help keep her from getting too stuck in her ways. Gotta liven up the team somehow. Well, you're certainly livening up things for me, I state flirtatiously despite my fatigue. In a happy way only, I hope. I raise a brow. What do you mean? She takes a deep breath as though steeling herself for what she wants to say. I want you to be happy. You being happy makes me happy, so I suppose I want us to be happy. Us? I stumble over the word in surprise. Yeah, guess we should see about that us at some point. She tugs on the side of her hat before swinging around, heading off down the corridor and looking back at me once with a smile so wide I can see it all the way down the hall. I roll my lips together at the swell of emotion which wants to overtake me. Finally, I unlock my door and head inside for what I'm sure will be very good dreams tonight. Well, I'm not sure about that, but maybe. At the stairwell of the apartment building, Farah pauses at the top step of the stairwell, having had to rush away from Jules. Her heart had been hammering like a jackhammer during their conversation, so much she thought she might lose her cool. Now she glances back at Jules. A smile instantly grows on Farah's face at the sight of them. A burst of happy tingles parades through Farah's body. She's happy to enjoy the reaction, realizing she's never felt this from anyone before except the detective. Yeah, she definitely hopes Jules will want to see about that us in the future. Well, if Farah can stop the butterflies fretting to ruin her composure every time she opens her mouth around Jules, that is, maybe she should ask Ava's advice on how to be so boring in the face of emotion. With a chuckle, Farah then skips down the stairs to head home. Next chapter.